Welcome back, everybody. And today we're going to be reviewing the limited series over on Netflix, Wayward, which turned out to be a twisted rehab story mixed with some cult drama. And in my opinion, it is a great watch. I think everybody should go see it. And I will tell you why in this review. And this is also a breakdown, and there will be spoilers. But before we get to that point, I will let you know when the spoilers are coming. That way you can turn it off or not watch when that time comes. Also, before we get started, please remember to like and subscribe and tune in for more content. So let's get started. Wayward is a psychological thriller, and cult drama has a lot of social commentary and points that are made in this TV show. And honestly, I think it was twisted. I think it was a bit surreal at times, but it was very real at times. In my opinion, this is probably one of the better TV shows of the year on Netflix and in general. Too bad it was a limited series and we're not going to get any more of this, but I could see them revisiting this in the future, maybe in a different story, following one of the other characters, but we'll see. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a series overview, and that way you could kind of get a feel for what this show is. And then after that, I'll get into my spoiler breakdown and so on and so forth. So the series is set in 2003 in Tall Pines, which is a town in in Vermont. It starts with law enforcement officer Alex Dempsey and his pregnant wife, Laura, moving back to her hometown. They're leaving Detroit. It seems as though Alex has been fired from the Detroit Police Department for whatever reason. They didn't really touch on that. But they're moving to Tall Pines, and they're going to get settled in there where she's from. That's basically the gist of their story. Then we move on to Abby and Layla, who the story mainly centers around. These are two struggling teens. Layla is your typical bad teen who has a lot of family issues and drugs and so on and so forth. And Layla is her best friend, who also is a follower of hers, and that's the best way you could put her because she does follow her to an extent, who seems to have comes from a decent family who just wants the best for her. You know, Layla obviously chose a different path or is in the middle of choosing a different path. While the story picks up with them, basically take us down, they take us through the teens path to arriving to Tall Pines. You know, get in trouble in school, drugs, parties, you know, the typical teen stuff that people in 2003 would do. And, you know, without video cameras everywhere, you can get away with a little bit more. Each episode, in my opinion, peels back the layers of this, what I would like to call ritualized humanization. They play a lot of mind games in the form of the hot seat and the mirror room. You have drug fuel leaps, and we'll get into what leaps are shortly. And the program's goal at Tall Pines is the program's goal is to rehabilitate children. That way they can have a successful adulthood by severing the ties from their toxic families. And that's basically what it is. And then speaking of the community, the townsfolk and the parents are, in my opinion, very complicit in a lot of things that happen in this series. And, you know, a lot of people, and pay attention, I say and or, either get trapped and or they're complicit and basically making Tall Pines damn near unescapable. And before we get into the breakdown, let's talk about leaps. So what is a leap and Wayward? I had to look this up myself just to make sure that I understood what a leap was. So a leap is a ritualized abusive process created by Evelyn in the story. And it was inspired by the cult that she came from in this series. I'm not going to talk about that just yet. But the ceremony is carried out in a flooded basement, often with the victim tied up or injected with psychedelic drugs. Most cases it's both, but they're being subjected to basically listening to Evelyn's voice just playing on repeat in their minds while they're going through their psychedelic high and quote unquote, you know, spiritual healing. But the leap basically aims to sever the bonds between the children and their parents or their families, and because most of these kids come from foster systems and so on and so forth. So the leap is basically designed to sever that, and basically so they could be reborn into this new person that they are. And that's honestly basically what a leap is. It's not too much more to it. That's basically what you will see when you watch the series. And if you need any more explanation on leaps, drop it down in the comments and I will try to break it down a little bit more if it's a little confusing. Because in watching it before I looked it up, figuring out what a leap actually was a little bit confusing, but all in all, it makes sense in the scope of the story. So, spoiler alert, this is the series breakdown. I'm going to be delivering some spoilers. I'm going to touch on some of the major points in the series, and we're going to break those down. And so this is your spoiler alert. Turn away now. If you don't turn away now, then this is basically what happens. So Abby is violently abducted in the series, and she is taken to Tall Pines, and Layla basically, with her 26-year-old boyfriend, and mind you, she's a minor, with her boyfriend they're going to go rescue her. But eventually the boyfriend just dumps her at a rest stop after he passed by a cop. He gets spooked. He has cocaine in the car and stuff like that. So he drops her off. Well, he leaves her and burns off from this, I would call it a rest area. And basically she hikes to Tall Pines. They never really said how far she hiked, or we know the story starts in Canada and she's basically hiking to Vermont. I don't remember them saying what part of Canada they were in, so I'm not sure how far this hike was, but it didn't seem to take very long because when Alex finds her hitchhiking, well, basically walking, and I guess it's kind of implied that she hitchhiked because she does say she caught a ride with somebody, but she doesn't seem very dirty or that she's been out very long. So that's kind of how it picks up when we get to Tall Pines. So at the academy, the teens are divided into different phases. And once Abby arrives at Tall Pines, she is escorted around the facility and shown all the different phases and where all the different kids are in these phases. The different phases are burrow, break, build, and ascend. The girl that's showing her around is in the ascend phase. And basically the teens are forced to expose their traumas and endure this crazy isolation because they're not allowed to touch, but they are allowed to talk to each other, but they're not allowed to touch. They're not allowed to do very much. They're watched very, very heavily. And so it's a little trippy in that part because as you see in the series, they display a lot of isolation because they are isolated to a degree, but they do have this social time. In all the rooms, they're paired up with another person or whatever the case may be. So they're not alone. But I can imagine you feeling very isolated, even with a bunch of people. If you were kidnapped from your home and basically brought to a place and in the middle of nowhere and there's nobody there that you actually know. And the only comfort you have is that, hey, everybody here is going through the same thing that I'm going through. But that's that. And then basically the kids are under the threat of, constant threat of being punished and then eventually being leaped that way to break these cycles of violence or drugs or whatever the case may be. So in the midst of the story, Layla and Abby decide to fight back and they use Rabbit in a sense in one of their sessions or whatnot. They basically catch Rabbit off guard and they say some things to her after Layla exposes that the kid in the very beginning of the show that escaped is dead now. She exposes that after Abby asks her not to, and Rory goes and tackles Rabbit. And basically the kids basically take over the entire school and they plan their big escape, which basically doesn't turn to very much of an escape. And that part kind of irritated me because the kids really could have got away. And I know it's a story, so we had to bring them back, but they really could have got away. They only ran one direction, then they ran back into the building and barricaded themselves in the building, basically trapping themselves. So with all that being said, the escape plan did not work. Basically Layla struggles with herself and why she is who she is, and does she truly bring the people down around her, because obviously this escape plan failed. And Abby is basically breaking out of her shell and turning into, you definitely see a change in Abby in this story from beginning to end, because she starts out as kind of this nerdy, wimpy kid, and she kind of becomes a leader of sorts and steps out on her own in the midst of her trauma during this series. So now we have Laura and Alex. Laura, who we find out in this series, is a survivor or graduate of this academy. And she's drawn to Evelyn for obvious reasons, but reasons that make more sense once you watch the series. But she is very much drawn to Evelyn. And I I believe, because Evelyn kind of insinuates in this that maybe she had a kid at one point. I think Evelyn looks at Laura as a daughter figure, and I think Laura looks at Evelyn as a mother figure, especially after it's exposed that Laura killed her real parents, although it was puzzled in like maybe the institution or the academy are the ones that were behind killing her parents, but it was Laura all along. Meanwhile, Alex, she's investigating the school's dark secret. She finds out about these disappearances from 18 other kids, even though it's been over a 20-year span. Alex is probably one of the most broken people in this show because she's worried about her baby. She's worried about her wife. She's at a new job with people she doesn't really know. And that she's, how can I say, people that she doesn't fully trust for every reason. They give her every reason not to trust them. But Alex is really a very curious person, and this curiosity takes her down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out what this place actually is, especially as she kind of picks up on the fact that Laura means more to this town and this community and the school than she probably led on to initially. But like I said, Alex finds out about the school's dark secrets, the suspicious deaths, the missing kids, but that ultimately leads her into clashing with the people of the town and people at her job, and surprisingly not her wife, but everybody else. All of that is basically one big build towards the finale. And in the finale, we have this basically dramatic escape attempt. Layla and Abby escape from the academy, and they hightail it to the town for. I mean, I guess there's nowhere else to go because they're in the middle of nowhere. So they go to the town, they break into a house, change clothes, whatever the case may be, and then Layla all of a sudden decides, because she's been reaped at this point, that she can't leave. She's found community. This is beautiful. She's good, and she just encourages basically Abby and Rory to just leave her behind, not even offering any help, but leave her behind. And so they run out of the house as they see the police coming up to the house, whatnot, and they go hide in a side house or whatever, a shed or something like that. So Rory, seeing the people surrounding the place, decides to be a hero, asks for a kiss, and then he basically sacrifices himself. We don't see what happens to him other than him fighting the guys, as Abby escapes into the woods and search for Alex's car, because Alex is helping the girls somewhat. She gave him a walkie-talkie. It goes dead for a couple episodes, and she pops back in. So, but her ultimate goal is to help the girls get out of the academy and back to wherever they came from, or just basically get the hell away from there. And so while all this is going on, towards the end, the other side of the finale, Evelyn at this point has captured Alex. This is I know I just said the escape attempt with Alex and the kids. That was like the middle of the season. But anyways, Evelyn at this point has captured Alex and has her down in the basement to be reaped. Alex, Rabbit, and Evelyn are in the basement. They're getting ready to start the reaping ceremony. And Rabbit turns her back on Evelyn and stabs her in the neck with the drug needle. And basically Evelyn goes into a psychedelic state. Rabbit frees Alex and she leaves after poking her a few more times. But she eventually leaves, and Rabbit stays in the basement as Evelyn goes through her psychedelic, seeming like a break. So while Evelyn is there in the basement, like I said, she's drugged out, floating in her own mind, seeing multiple doors. And this takes us back to the house where Alex and Laura live. And the baby's on his way at this point, and they're surrounded by everybody in the town, because one part that I left out is Laura wants to basically be Evelyn. She wants to take her place as a new leader of the community, and she wants to change things so that this community is safe for kids, because their kid is going to be the first of the community. And she feels as though her kid is going to heal the community. She had this conversation with some of the people in the basement, but basically the entire community has warmed to this idea, and they're all surrounding her. They're in the house, and Alex arrives. The baby is born, and then the weirdest thing happens. They take the baby, they clean the baby off, and they hand the baby to Alex. And then, one of the people from the community asks for the baby back. And then Laura tells Alex, it's everybody's baby. This baby is going to save everybody. It's going to change everything. It's going to break the cycle. And to that, we'll say hopefully, because it's one baby being shared by a community of broken people. Hey, so I don't know if that's going to work out very well, but maybe it will. I don't think it will. But this is why I say, this is one of the reasons why I say this show or series could use a follow up. If they just wanted to, it could be another limited series. They left a lot of meat on the bone on purpose, but it's for us to draw our own conclusions. But so that's not where the show ends. The show ends with a weird hugging ceremony again with the baby in the middle. And later on that night, everybody's gone. The door is left open, and Alex and Laura are laying in the bed. Alex is laying there looking at the baby, and then we flash to her basically running out of the house with the baby and meeting up with um Abby at the car that she left in the woods with some money and stuff like that. And, you know, Abby's like, oh, you know, thank you for coming. You kept your word, blah, 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 blah. And they appear to be driving off together. And then, probably one of the bigger twists in the show, we find out that this is basically a figment of Alex's imagination. And Alex really is still at home, standing at the door, and she closes the door, in my mind, signifying that I'm okay with the bullshit. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to raise this baby with the entire community. We're going to save this place. And that's that. And then we see Abby driving off in the car with the dog by herself. And, you know, that's basically that. So what do you guys think about the series if you've seen it? When I was actually watching it, I was sitting there in awe a lot of the times because it had parts you would probably want to call it confusion, but it wasn't really confusion. It was just more just, damn, like, give me more, give me more, give me more. So while it was a little confusing, it was the kind of confusion that pulls you in and just keeps you wanting more. Personally, these 8 episodes weren't enough. I could sit back and probably watch another 8 episodes of this easily, because this was a easy watch. It was a great watch. This was a great thriller. In my opinion, probably one of the better original shows or shows that have came out this year. So I do think that everybody should give it a watch. It's over on Netflix. What else is there to touch on in this? We talked about the characters. We talked about the leap. There's no need to go down my usual chaos checklist, because if you watch this series, the entire series is chaotic. You know, with the rituals, with the escape attempts, the violence, it gives you everything that you could want, but it gives it to you in this calm, twisted fashion that may even make you feel like you need to be leaped after watching the show, because it's that good in my opinion. But don't worry, you're not going to have any psychotic breaks while watching this show or anything like that. But after watching this show, who do you guys think is the most broken or, you know, the most changed? In my opinion, I thought it was Abby. I thought Abby had like I said, she started out as this, you know, wimpy kid or whatnot, and she kind of leaves as a person that's confident in herself and knows what she wants or whatever. And, well, to a degree, she's just a teenager. But as far as getting the hell away from there and trying to go back home and being determined and not as wimpy is definitely a change. Alex was always broken. Alex was broken when the show started, and it probably ended the series more broken. Layla, she probably could be up there for the most changed, because she started out as a hardcore junkie and basically is now, I don't know what the hell to say she is. She's basically the younger version of Laura, because that's basically seems like the cycle is going to be Evelyn. If this was a long 5-episode series, this would clearly be Evelyn first or a second, and then ending with Layla as the next person that's going to lead this cult. Did you sympathize with anybody in this series? The only person that I felt like I could sympathize with was probably Abby. I started to sympathize with Alex until the very end, when I was so happy when I thought Alex was leaving. And then to show her to stand at the house, and it was just like, you went through all of this, killed people, somebody got killed because of you looking into this, and you still decide to stay, and the only person you send away is the dog. Yeah, I couldn't sympathize with you anymore. And I don't sympathize with anybody else. So I think Abby is probably the only person that deserves sympathy in this series. And what would you do? Yeah, because I know what I would do. But what would you do if you were in Alex's shoes and actually went through all this crazy crap, and I would have left a long time ago. I never would have gave an ultimatum of, oh, we're going to leave before the baby's born. It's going to be like, yo, either you coming with me or you're not, but we leaving, and that's that. Or I'm going to leave without you. Or maybe you wait till the baby's born and kind of do what she was thinking and just kidnap your own kid. But they kind of alluded to the people of Tall Pines are everywhere. So like Laura was in Detroit. So the guy, the school counselor at the beginning of the series was in Canada. So they're clearly everywhere. So maybe you can't run. But I think I would have gave it a try. That's just me though. But that's it for this review breakdown. Let me know what you thought of this series. I thought it was a great watch. Let me know what you think about that down in the comments. We have more to come. Please like, subscribe, comment. I will respond to your comments. I'm a little bit behind on responding to comments now, but I will be responding to comments. And I will see you all next time. Thank you and bye.